Daniel, what exactly will be on the agenda for these talks?
Well, Macky Sall is visiting Sochi, the southern Russian city, for talks with the Russian president, largely to discuss food security. Of course, that's going to be the absolutely overriding main issue on the agenda. And also, according to the president's office, as part of the efforts to come to some sort of ceasefire agreement to a lull in the Ukraine war. That's according to a statement from Sall's office. The invitation came from Putin. He will also be accompanied by former Prime Minister of Chad, Moussa Faki Mahamat. Now, the whole world, of course, has seen rising living costs, rising food costs. Africa has been particularly vulnerable as a continent recovering from COVID, vulnerable to extreme weather conditions, poverty, and, of course, very reliant on food imports. And this was all outlined by President Sall in a video conference to EU leaders in Brussels earlier this week, where he said that already over 220 million people in Africa face food insecurity and are vulnerable to food shocks. Now, pre-war, African states import around 40% of their wheat from Ukraine and Russia. Indeed, Ukraine grew enough wheat to feed around 400 million people, an absolutely huge amount. That is now at risk. The food chains are disrupted. Ukrainian ships are unable to leave the ports into the Black Sea to export those grains and that wheat. Fertilizer, of course, Russia also a key supplier. Prices are rising very strongly since last year, and as a result, grain yields in Africa are predicted to fall by between 20 and 30%. Sall was also critical last week of sanctions, though, saying that the SWIFT sanctions, in particular, the sanctions on Russian banks, are also contributing to difficulties in purchasing food, calling on a resolution there. So these will also very much on the agenda in the meeting with Putin.
Yeah, many African countries, Daniel, have been sort of taking the middle position on the war in Ukraine. So, what are the wider implications of this meeting?
Well, Mr. Zal has been quite pragmatic, really, so far in this conflict. Senegal's played a very delicate balancing act. He was one of the leaders to call President Putin back in March to press for a ceasefire, to try and broker a ceasefire in Ukraine. Senegal was also one of 17 African states to abstain from condemning Russia in a UN resolution at the outbreak of the war. It also remained neutral, of course, back in 2014 on the issue of Crimea. Senegal did later condemn Russia in the Human Rights Council meeting on the 4th of March in a potential sign of some sort of turning tide in its allegiance. Perhaps too early to say, but we do know, of course, that the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also visited Senegal just last week, or in the end of May rather, to secure gas supplies. Germany very keen to diversify away from Russian gas, find other sources, and it's understood that some sort of agreement was reached for BP to potentially develop gas fields off the coast of Senegal, with barrels potentially coming online next year.
Daniel Hawkins reporting there from Moscow. Thank you.